Welcome to another Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot breakdown. The meta continues to not really face new developments within the highest tiers. While the lower tiers have seen power shifts and even a new deck popping up, the upper end of the meta has undergone nearly no change. Luckily for us, there have been talks about an upcoming minor balance patch prior to the release of the new expansion. While nothing has been set in stone, we're excited to see what Blizzard has in store for us and will be eagerly waiting for more information. Before we take a deeper look into the top tier in this meta report, be sure to subscribe to our channel to be kept up with all of our latest strategy game content. We upload several videos a week covering a variety of card games, so you're sure to find something that suits your interests. Now let's jump right into Tier 1. Leading off Tier 1 this time around is once again Tempo Warrior. As we continue to say, Tempo Warrior will remain the deck to beat for the rest of the meta, barring a large change to the class's card design. Warrior has access to some of the best cards in the format, and a lot of them are very synergistic. Warrior is a cut above the rest, and realistically the only deck that can compete with it in terms of power level is Tempo Demon Hunter. Despite these two decks being similar in power level, Warrior is favored in this matchup, being one of its best on ladder currently. As for bad matchups, Tempo Warrior tends to struggle against Galakrond Priest. The Priest has several different ways to win this matchup, and as long as they consciously play around the burst from either Korkron Elites or Gromish, they should be alright. The only other deck in Tier 1 this time around is Tempo Demon Hunter. This previously mentioned archetype remains at the top of the meta, even a bit after the nerf to Twin Slice. Realistically, this didn't change the deck much, although it might have helped it significantly in Wild. Tempo Demon Hunter remains one of the best choices for ladder, as the games are mostly favored and are also completed relatively quickly. Tempo Demon continues to have a great matchup against both Spell Druid and Highlander Hunter, as the fast out of the gate playstyle that Illidan currently has is really difficult for these classes to deal with. As for bad matchups, the previously mentioned one against Tempo Warrior is incredibly hard to win, as the Warrior is essentially built with the pure intention of beating Demon Hunter. As we always do, we'll be taking a look at the top performing decks within the second tier before wrapping up with a good deck to counter the latter meta. We'd like to take this time to remind you to check out the rest of this meta snapshot over at tempostorm.com. Without further ado, let's take a look at the deck leading this tier. Spell Druid finds its home at the top of Tier 2. This archetype has insane high roll potential thanks to a combination of things such as its ramp and high rolling minions. If Spell Druid draws a good hand, it will run away with the game, making it extremely difficult for any archetypes to compete with it. This can feel really unfair at times, as your opponent having double your mana might feel unfun, so all you can do is hope for the best. Spell Druid has a solid matchup against Quest Warlock, being one of the most favored matchups for the deck. If you draw a threat or two to make a swing turn, it's very difficult for the Warlock to compete with you. As for bad matchups, Spell Druid tends to have a pretty rough time playing against some of the more aggressive decks on ladder, such as Tempo Demon Hunter or Pirate Warrior, as you often won't have the time to ramp to your threats while they're pressuring you down. Next up in Tier 2 is Galakrond Priest. This slow control deck continues to be a threat within the higher tiers, and has brought several players to very high ranks. Experts of the deck such as Zanananan continue to pilot the deck to the highest ranks, no matter what pocket meta they find themselves in. Galakrond Priest has a good matchup against Tempo Warrior, making it one of the only decks to be favored in this matchup. As for the rough matchups, Galakrond Priest finds itself having a very rough time against both Quest Warlock and Highlander Hunter, with both archetypes being insanely favored against you. The last archetype we'll be looking at today in Tier 2 is Tempo Rogue. This deck is extremely well-rounded and has decent game against most decks. On top of that, Rogue always has the chance to scam a win thanks to Galakrond and Heist Baron Togwaggle. Tempo Rogue has been around and near the top of the meta for the past while, and likely will continue to be around unless some of Rogue's key cards are touched in a balance patch. Tempo Rogue has a good matchup against Tempo Demon Hunter, being one of the better choices for countering it on ladder. While Tempo Rogue doesn't have favorables across the board, it's important to realize that most of its matchups are either a 50-50 or close to it, making it a reliable ladder choice for good players. It does have a rough matchup against Spell Druid though, as it's hard to deal with most of the Druid's threats, and you aren't aggressive enough to stop them before they reach that point. While that wraps up the final tier that we'll be looking at today, we still have one more deck for you. As usual, we want to provide you with a deck that you can take to the ladder to gain an edge on your opponents. To be honest, we're kind of running out of suggestions as the meta has been stale for quite some time, but luckily luckily we'll be blessed with a new meta relatively soon. The deck that we have for you today is Cube Priest. While the name might be a bit confusing, seeing as there isn't actually any cubes in the deck, the name comes from the similarity to Carnivore's Cube, using cards such as Grave Rune and Psych Split. This Priest list might look weird, but it does surprisingly well against Tempo Demon Hunter, making it a solid choice for ladder right now. It's also relatively refreshing to play, so we definitely suggest trying it out and letting us know in the comments how it does for you. The Hearthstone meta is in a weird place right now and is certainly at the end of its life. It'll be exciting to see how the upcoming balance patch changes things, for better or for worse. We hope you enjoyed our look into the standard Hearthstone meta. As always, we'd greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on in order to keep up to date with all of our strategy game content. We'll have more videos coming this week, as well as our wild meta snapshot. We'll see you all next time.